Hello and welcome to a new lesson of TypeRoof, the TypeRoof shell to be more exact, and within that the layout, stage and actors. And I'm going to talk about property propagation and inheritance within the stage and actors layout when we are doing animations. For this purpose, as always, I start at our documentation landing page, which is located at fontbureau.github.io/typeroof/docs. From there, we can navigate to the user kit. This is the entry point for this kind of lessons. And I'm going to navigate all the way down because I prepared this lesson already with some required links. One of these is the TypeRoof shell. I'm going to open this in a new tab. You can also access the applications from the sidebar. We will require a font file for this, which is not included in the app. I'm going to download that. I'm simply clicking on it and it loads it. There's also a GitHub repository where the file is located. We also are looking at a state. All of these things have been explained in the previous apps and in the previous lessons, and I'm going quickly over these because if you feel like overwhelmed by any of these, you should go back to the user kit and see there is an example, an overview over the app. There's a lesson how to load and save states, which I'm doing right now, and there's a lesson how to use custom fonts, which also uses the same state as we will look at in a second. So I'm going to load, save, share this, copy, paste the state into the serialized data window and press deserialize, and I was successful. This is because I already loaded the font. If I do show you an example, which you may encounter. If I did not install the font previously, press serialize, I get an error. And if you get that error, you need to download the font and then drag it either from your file manager like this. In my downloads directory, I can drag it into the app, which did not work. This example, let's do this again. Now it worked, or I can use this button and file chooser will open. So now it worked, and the set is already working, but if you now use deserialize again with the copied data, you get a succeeded message, and that's what you want. Now let's look at this Decovar specimen. A Decovar is a demo font which shows how expressive variable fonts can be. So it has very extreme axes that show decorations in a display font, possible ones. So let's look into the stage of this animation. The stage itself has no properties defined. It defines no key moments, but there's a layer that has timing and color. We are going to talk about time in the next lesson. Then it has a layer about styles. This is a thing I'm going to show in depth in a second. And we have a line of text which inherits all of the styles, but well, you can see the descriptions of these key moments. The first centers and writes a text to the line of text. Then there's some movement and font size changes. But the styles layer has all the styles, and all the styles define styles that are predefined in the font. So all these have names. You will find all these names in the key moment descriptions. And you will see that there are a lot of custom non-standard axes in here that are defined with Decovar, and always one of these, well, not always, there's the Mayhem style, which is different, is turned on all the way, and all the others are explicitly turned off all the way. So I'm going to repeat everything in here, delete everything in here, create a layer because we're going to need that later, and I create a line of text. I'm going to drag this directly into the layer. So now I can inherit from the stage, and I can inherit from the layer into the line of text. I'm going to change. Actually, it's much more fun to demonstrate with many lines of text because inheritance will affect all of the children of a layer. Like a layer is a container. The top container is the stage, and every container can inherit some properties to its children. So this layer should inherit text to both of them. Text can be inherited. And I want to have font size set to both of them. Now I'm going to into one layer and add key moment and set its vertical position somewhere down. So what you see now, even though time is running and I'm adding a lot of values to properties that I define explicitly, there's no animation going on. There's only one key moment, so you figure probably, well, if there's one key moment, there can't be animation. But I can add, for example, to this line of text, a second key moment, and there's still no animation. It's important to understand that there can only be animation if a property changes between key moments. If you only set one property in one actor, that's going to define the value of the property in all of its timeline. If there's and it doesn't matter if this is the first key moment, the last, or the third. It can be any key moment. So, for example, I want to move this text to the right by some amount, maybe not that far. Then it's still not animated. So this is 50 is now for all of the local timeline of this actor the property value, and if I go up to the first key moment, you can see there's 50, and this is not a default value, this is the value in this scope. So if this scope defines a value, we are not going to inherit it from anywhere, but it's set for the whole scope. If I set in two key moments two different values for a property, like I have this 150, you can see that movement is going to happen, because now we can, between two values, create a transition, and because we make this over time, and because this is playing, we see it moving. If these properties are not set, they are first inherited, and if there's no value that can be inherited, they are coming from a default value, which is defined either in the source code of the app for some of these, or for the example of access locations, these have defaults that come with the font. The defaults of the access locations are defined in the access definition in the font. Down here is a widget which tells us for this actor their own properties, and you can see Y is set, but it does not animate, and you can see, because we are playing this play right now, that the property X is an own property and locally animated. And the inherited properties will always give us the information which properties are coming from the parent layer and are inherited into this one. So going back to the parent layer, and if you recall, we had a lot of key moments that animate through the different styles that are defined in the, I think it's the stat axis of the variable fonts, decovar. So I'm going to make a small example of that. I'm not going to go through all of these. And we can ignore, for the sake of the documentation, the other values I did set in here already. Although the separation of concerns is not fully given then. So here are manual the styles, and I'm going to open all the X's that are in this font. When I set a style, for example, let's start at striped. You can see the font changes to striped, and the striped X is set explicitly, but the other X's are not set explicitly because they stay at their default value. And this is a thing that happens with this inheritance first model that we have in here. So for the second key moment, I set rounded. And now you can see this is interesting. We have a rounded caps and the striped appearance at the same time. So this sets explicitly the rounded value, but it also inherits from its scope the stripes value, because that is set in the previous key moment, and that is set explicitly in here. Now if I go to the third key moment and set, let's say, the bifurcated, well, that's another line ending one, let's say the fancy axis, we see suddenly we have this does set a lot of X's as well. We have a lot of things going on and we don't have any animation. What we need to do is to explicitly set all the other X's that we don't want to change in here into the default value, so that we can have eventually, and now you can see it starts to animate, so that we can have eventually, don't need to set all of them. The ones that we don't touch, we don't need to set, but I want to set them explicitly because I want to have, in this case, all the control. So this one needs to go because I want to have it animated. Set explicitly, this one needs to go. See, these are also inherited and to animate, and I don't want them to animate. The rounded one is the one I set before explicitly, so I want to keep that. Set this and set this explicitly. Now go to the last one. If they don't animate, I wouldn't have to set them. But for this example, just kind of brute forcing. Oh, that was set with. I need to do it. I want to do it because it's more flexible. So now I have the first style, and then it goes into the rounded style, and then it goes into the fancy style. This is what the other demo does. Explicitly setting all the values back to their default so that they are not defined by the neighboring key moments or by other key moments. And that's how the demo works. So I'm going to copy that and paste it into here. We can have a short look at it. So press play. There's a timing and color layer. I'm not going to talk about timing because time is going to be the next lesson. But we can see initial black white, and it explicitly sets black and white despite that being the default values. Background color is not inherited. By the way, there are some properties that are not inherited, like background color, and another one would be X and Y, because X and Y apply directly to a layer, and then the layer moves and everything within moves. There's no meaning in also inheriting this at the same time, because the position of the parent layer is the transition of the parent layer is already inherited. Then we have a second key moment where we have explicitly set these colors. So that's the transformation of the color. We also have time. We can, that's preview for the next lesson, can inherit the time of the children. So this has no effect on this layer. You can see that the master time control and this layer's time circle are in sync, but when I go to the chart, you can see this now makes a pause, a dramatic pause, and then it goes on, and it's a bit quicker than this one. And this is because the layer here, you can see now down here in the own properties, this is numeric properties T. That's the children time that is inherited, and this is the own time of this actor, and the children time is at 1, and then it pauses. The same principle as animation of other properties. So now we go into the styles, and I can go into checkered, reverse, or any other style. And when I look at all of them, we can see that we explicitly pinned all the axes to their default values, so that we don't have interference from the other key moments with these. It's a special case. Most cases it's easier to inherit, but in some cases it's important to be explicit and set everything explicitly. And this last layer, the line of text, does set its text content itself. That's not inherited. That's down here. It has a width that is wider than the stage, which is 720 in this case. And because it's wider and we still want to have the text centered, we have a negative offset at the X. We don't animate these. And here is the centered property. These all are set in one key moment and apply to all of the timeline, because they don't change in the other key moments. So you see this doesn't change, but it changes here the Y position of the text, and in this third key moment it changes the font size still. So at some point it stops moving down, but it's still growing a little bit for the suspense effect. Now if we look here, we can see all of these properties at the top, all the X's are inherited. Looks almost just like a dance. And then we animate the mayhem axis, which turns everything on basically. And down here we have their own properties. I hope that explained how the inheritance mechanisms work. Like the first level is a property has a default value. If a parent scope defines the property value, then the inherited value of the parent scope is taken. And if the value is defined in the local timeline of the actor, then that property is taken. If we want to transition the value between two key moments, we need to set it again in another key moment and change it to another value, and then we will have a transition, which will cause an animation. So from the perspective of the actor, if a property is not set, it takes whatever parent scopes does with it, or it takes a default value. If parent scope animates the value, it will be animated in the child. You can also witness this at these widgets that write down the property values, but you can also widget this inheritance when you go, for example, into these access locations, and you can see the sliders dance. These are not set explicitly, so they are controlled from somewhere else. that is key moments in the same actor or the parent scopes. Thank you very much. I hope that wasn't too heavy, and I hope it helped to understand, and see you for the next lesson, which is about time control.